Discover the incredible transformation after my son claimed there wasn't space for me on our trip. Mark had saved for this road trip for years. Every dropped penny from his paycheck, every skipped in or out, all for this moment time with Jake, just the two of them hitting the open road. But then Jake casually said, "Dad, I don't think there's enough space for you in the car. My friends are going too." The words hit Mark like a brick wall, a cold splash of reality that left him breathless. Suddenly, the excitement of the trip faded, replaced by an ache in his chest. Jake, his 14-year-old son, who had once idolized him, seemed to view him as a burden. Mark recalled the moments he sacrificed. Long hours at the plant, the late nights repairing things around the house, all to give Jake a life better than his own childhood. What had it all been for? Was he no longer the hero in Jake's eyes? As days rolled on, the neighborhood buzzed with laughter and cheer. He could hear kids playing basketball, the sizzling of burgers on grills nearby. Yet, here he was alone in his thoughts, feeling like the last tree standing in winter. Jake was distracted, more interested in texting his friends than sharing a laugh with his dad. Mark's heart sank deeper with each passing moment. He decided he had to do something, anything, to bring them back together. He planned a community car wash fundraiser, thinking maybe working side by side would rekindle their bond. But when the event day came, Mark showed up in his old, faded clothes, humorously trying to be the fun dad. The grease dripped from his hands as he waved at passing cars, but instead of laughter, he caught glimpses of embarrassment on Jake's face. Mark could see the whispers amongst Jake's friends, could feel the disapproving glares, and that moment Jake snapped. "I'm ashamed to be seen with you." It was like a knife in the gut. Mark's heart cracked wide open, the warmth of their bond seeming to disintegrate. The hurt in Jake's eyes mirrored the storm churning inside him, revealing layers of disappointment and fear neither had dared to voice. Mark wanted to reach out, to reassure Jake that he wasn't just a dad on the sidelines but someone who had dreams too. Just when everything felt hopeless, a kind neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, pulled up with her grandson. She grinned, saying, "Look at you two, making a difference." Her cheerful demeanor cut through the thick tension. Watching them interact, Jake's irritation began to soften, creating a fleeting spark of hope. Mark's chest tightened again, but this time it was a different feeling, a glimmer of resolve. Was this the start of something new? Could they overcome this rift? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the tension hung in the air, Jake's eyes softened, accompanied by a timid smile as he glanced back at Mark. There was so much left unsaid, so much tension under the surface. Would they find their way back to each other atop this emotional precipice? The uncertainty loomed, but for the first time in days, Mark felt a thread of hope weaving itself through the cracks of their strained relationship. What did family truly mean in this fleeting moment? Would they discover it together? Mark couldn't shake the heaviness in the air as he watched Jake approach him slowly. The weight of their earlier confrontation lingered between them like an unwelcome guest. For a brief moment, the warmth of Mrs. Johnson's smile faded, replaced by a silence almost deafening in its intensity. "Dad." Jake's voice was barely above a whisper. It was as if he was unsure whether his words would bring them closer or push them further apart. "Yeah, buddy," Mark replied, trying to keep his tone light despite the turmoil brewing inside him. He knew that the first step was crucial. He needed Jake to feel safe. I'm sorry," Jake managed, shifting from foot to foot. "I shouldn't have said that. It's just I don't know. Everything feels weird right now." Mark's heart swelled. It wasn't a resolution yet, but it was something. "I get it, Jake. I really do. Things have changed between us and I want to understand. But you don't have to be ashamed of me, I'm still your dad." As if a dam had broken, Jake spoke on, "I just want to fit in. All my friends have these amazing dads who do cool stuff. I feel like you're different." Mark couldn't help but feel the sting of those words, but he didn't let it show. "Different can be good, he said, trying to encourage a new perspective. "Different means unique. And besides, I am kind of a fun dad, right?" He cracked a smile, hoping to lighten the mood. Jake chuckled, a soft sound that brought warmth back into the moment. Yeah, but you're also old-fashioned. That's true. But I've got some stories up my sleeve. Maybe I can teach you a trick or two in the process. Jake hesitated and then asked, can we talk about the road trip? I mean, can we make it more our thing? Just us? Mark's chest tightened again, but this was a good tightening, a hopeful one. Absolutely. I have a ton of ideas. What if we hit the open road just like we planned but made it an adventure? We can stop at cool places, try weird food, and even attempt to play the songs in the car together. It could be a blast. As Jake's face lit up, showing a spark of the boy who once looked up to his dad, Mark felt a flicker of the bond they once had. Okay, that actually sounds pretty sweet, Jake admitted. We could make a playlist of our favorite songs. Now we're talking. And I promise to let you pick most of the music within reason, Mark joked, earning another smile from his son. Suddenly, the tension from before began to lift like fog under the bright sun. Their conversation, once a painful chasm, had begun to bridge just a little. Hey, what if we invite Mom? Jake suggested, brushing such a significant idea under the surface of their conversation. Mark paused, the thought rolling through him like thunder. The complications of relationships were like the tangled roots of a tree, hard to unravel. Did they want that? Would it bring them closer or remind them of what they had lost? I think Mark started, his voice carefully measured. That might be a good idea, but let us talk about it later. Yeah, later, Jake echoed, though uncertainty still clouded his eyes. As they stood together, an unexpected sense of unity began to blossom. It wouldn't be easy, but maybe they could navigate their way through this new reality. Mark looked at Jake, feeling the familiar flutter of love and hope. Let us get back to work here, partner. Our car wash isn't going to clean itself. And we've got a reputation as the best car wash team to uphold. With laughter echoing, they turned their focus back to the gathering crowd. Then Mark thought of one final question that hung in the air. Would Jake now see him as more than just different? Would he understand that sometimes it's not about fitting in but about sticking together? It was a pivotal moment, but as they threw a bucket of soapy water over a passing car and laughed, a new chapter unfolded before them. But would that chapter include the return of Jake's mom? And how would it change everything they were starting to rebuild? Mark wiped his brow, glancing up to see Mrs. Johnson chatting with a few neighbors and kids who had gathered around the makeshift car wash. Laughter and splashes filled the air, an oddly comforting backdrop to the weighty conversation he'd just had with Jake. He knew they were inching closer to something special, but the mention of Jake's mom loomed over him like a storm cloud. All right, buddy. Who's next? Mark called out, turning the energy back to the task at hand. Me. I want to help. Jake chimed in, his enthusiasm infectious. They worked side by side, spraying down cars and joking about how many suds could fit in a bucket. With every brush stroke, Mark felt the chasm between them start to fill. But his mind kept drifting. Should they really invite her? Could this be the right time? Memories of laughter and warmth washed over him, but so did memories of colder days filled with tension and arguments. As they finished cleaning the last car of the day, Mark could see Jake glancing at his phone. You want to hang with your friends, don't you? He asked, feeling the weight of their earlier conversation. Yeah, but I was thinking. Jake hesitated, scratching the back of his head. What if we did that car wash thing more often? I mean, it felt like we were a team. It was fun. Mark felt a swell of pride but also a twinge of sadness. I'd love that. But only if we also plan that road trip. Jake's face brightened. For sure. But you promise we'll make it cool, Dad? Absolutely. Just you wait. But just as they were packing up the last of the supplies, a familiar voice called out from behind them. Hey boys. Mark shot a look at Jake, who had paled at the sound. He turned to see Jill, Jake's mom, standing there with an uncertain smile. She looked like she'd been outside, windswept and fresh, but the tension between them was palpable. Wow, I didn't know you were fundraising today, she said, taking in the scene of wet clothes and spattered laughter. Yeah, we thought it would be fun, Jake replied softly, avoiding her gaze. Mark stepped forward, trying to keep things light. Just trying to keep the neighborhood cars clean. Want to join? Jill smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I just wanted to drop by and see how you guys were doing. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. Mark's heart raced. The timing couldn't have been worse. Here they were finally forging a connection, and now the specter of their past loomed between them again. We were just talking about plans for a road trip, Jake blurted out, his eyes darting between his mom and Mark. Oh, that sounds fun, Jill said, but her voice was tentative, as if she didn't fully trust the idea. Caught off guard, Mark glanced at Jake. Should he invite her along? What if things got messy? He struggled to smile as he saw the glimmer of hope in Jake's eyes, and the sliver of fear in Jill's. Yeah, we were hoping to make it something special, Mark said carefully. Just the three of us. How do you feel about that? Jill hesitated, her expression wavering between surprise and apprehension. I think that sounds nice. Really nice. Jake beamed, the joy on his face so bright it felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. But Mark couldn't shake the feeling that that joy might come with a price. And just like that, he felt the future pulse with uncertainty. Was it possible to mend their family as they embarked on this adventure together? Would they be able to put aside the past and focus on the journey ahead? Mark held his breath, waiting for Jill to respond. The air was thick with unspoken words, and he wondered if this road trip would lead them closer or further apart. Would he find out what true togetherness meant in the midst of it all? As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, a fragile silence settled around the three of them. Jake's excitement was palpable, yet Mark could feel the tension hanging heavy in the air like humidity before a storm. I think we should stop for ice cream on the way, Jake said, turning to his mom, trying to break the ice. His eagerness for the trip snuck into his voice, a hopeful melody that resonated with their shared laughter from earlier. Jill looked at her son, her smile wavering. Ice cream sounds like a great idea, Jake. Do you have a place in mind? Mark watched her closely. There was something shifting in her demeanor, a flicker of vulnerability that reminded him of the days when they had shared joys and burdens equally. Those memories felt so distant now. Yeah, the one with the big cones, Jake exclaimed, leaning into the conversation, as if pushing back against the clouds of discomfort. Mark admired his son's determination to keep things light, to forget what loomed between them. Maybe we can even have a little friendly competition to see who can eat theirs the fastest, Mark added, throwing a playful challenge into the air. Jill's laughter was brief, but it brought a warmth that chased away the shadows. Well, I never back down from a challenge. But just as Mark felt a twinge of hope, he noticed the glint of uncertainty in Jill's eyes. It was as if the weight of the past had crept back into their moment. The little things unresolved still nagged at them. She shifted on her feet, that familiar awkwardness creeping back into the small talk. I guess I should be more involved, huh? Jill said, her voice quiet but edged with an undercurrent of resignation. Mark took a step forward. You're always welcome. This trip is about more than just fun. It's about reconnecting, about making new memories. We can work through things if you want to. She paused, her body tense, the air thick with everything they hadn't said. For a moment, all three stood still, caught in what felt like a suspended moment, the noise around them fading into a background hum. Jake, seemingly oblivious to the gravity of the conversation, broke in again. I want us to have an adventure, like the ones from my favorite movies. Jill's expression softened at his enthusiasm, but Mark could see the conflict brewing behind her gaze. Adventures can be complicated, Jake. Sometimes they don't go the way we expect. But that's why they're special. Remember that time we got lost during the hike? And we ended up finding that cool waterfall? Jake beamed, recalling a moment they'd shared years ago. Mark watched as a smile cracked through Jill's solemnity. You're right. Sometimes the unexpected is the most exciting part. Mark could feel a wave of cautious optimism rising within him. Maybe this road trip would be an opportunity, a chance to explore new paths, both on the road and between them. But just as he thought they might touch that elusive thread of togetherness, Jill's phone buzzed, cutting through the moment. She glanced down, the smile slipping from her face as reality reasserted its presence. Sorry, I have to take this. The way she stepped away felt heavy. Mark noticed how her shoulders hunched as she walked toward her car, her words trailing off. Jake frowned, confusion replacing his earlier excitement. Is she okay, Dad? Mark nodded, but his heart sank. Yeah, buddy. Just something important. But, she'll come around. Yet, even as he spoke, a gnawing uncertainty settled over him. Had he underestimated how complicated their path forward would be? Jake glanced up at him, hopeful still. Do you think she'll still want to come? Mark took a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. I hope so, kiddo. I really hope so. For Jake, the day had been a bright spot of fun. For Mark, it pulled at a deeper fear. Could their excitement hold up against the old scars? And as Jill began to drive off, Mark couldn't help but wonder if this road trip would bring them together. Or if it would reveal even bigger divides. Would they be able to bridge the gap? Or would past hurts keep them apart? Mark watched as Jill's car pulled away, a cloud of dust swirling in its wake. The sun slipped below the horizon, leaving everything cloaked in shadows. He felt a small knot forming in his stomach as Jake shuffled beside him, still waiting for an answer that felt more complicated than it should. Do you think Mom will be okay? Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Mark crouched down, bringing himself to eye level with his son. She just has some things to deal with, you know? Sometimes grown-ups have to talk about stuff that's hard. But she loves you and she wants to be here. Jake nodded, but his brow furrowed with concern. Doesn't he feel like it though? If she really wanted to be here, she wouldn't have left. The honesty in Jake's words hit Mark harder than he anticipated. You're right. It must be confusing. But remember, we're on this adventure together. We can't change how someone else feels, but we can enjoy what we have, right? Jake sighed. I just wanted the whole family to have fun. I know, buddy. Me too. We'll get there, I promise. Mark straightened up, trying to mirror a sense of confidence he felt far from. How about we get that ice cream, and then we can go on our own adventure, just the two of us for now. Surprisingly, Jake's face brightened at the mention of ice cream, and he bounced on his heels. Yes, let us go. As they walked to the car, Mark felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. While he was excited to create new moments with Jake, the empty space that Jill left behind lingered in the air. They climbed into the vehicle, the scent of worn leather and summer air abounding as he started the engine. The drive to the ice cream shop felt longer than usual, with silence filling the void where laughter should have been. Jake chattered about flavors and toppings, his enthusiasm spilling into the atmosphere of the car. Dad, do you think Mom will surprise us and show up later? Jake asked, his large eyes filled with hope. Mark glanced over, searching for the right words. Maybe. It'd be nice if she did, wouldn't it? Jake's smile faded slightly. What if she doesn't? What if she's just gone? Mark's heart ached at the fear in Jake's tone. I don't want you to think that way. Families go through stuff, but we always find our way back. Trust that she will. After a pause, Jake asked tentatively, what if we can't find a way back, Dad? What if things change forever? Mark clenched the steering wheel, feeling the weight of those questions. Nothing can change the love we have for each other. That's what matters most. Jake remained quiet, the corners of his lips twitching as if he wanted to ask more but held back. They had arrived at the ice cream shop, with its bright neon lights flickering like hopeful stars. Mark parked, taking a breath. Just you wait, buddy. We're about to make some fun memories. They hopped out and joined the small line snaking toward the counter. Mark could see Jake's excitement bubbling again as he glanced at all the colorful flavors sparkling in the glass cases. But there was still something unsettling in Mark's heart. As they placed their orders, Mark felt the earlier tension creep back in. Would Jill join them? Would she still want to build memories like this? What if this adventure ended up highlighting their distance instead of healing it? As scoops of ice cream were piled onto cones in front of them, Jake laughed and Mark tried to let himself relax. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that this trip would test them in ways they had yet to understand. With Jake bouncing ahead, ready for a sugar-fueled sprint, Mark lingered for a moment, savoring the scent of sweet vanilla and the soft chatter around him. But as he turned to catch up, he heard his phone buzz in his pocket, the familiar tone sending a jolt of anxiety through him. Who could it be? Was it Jill? Or someone else that would shift the course of their trip even more? As he pulled out the phone to check, a familiar dread filled his chest. What awaited him on the other side of the screen? Mark's fingers trembled slightly as he unlocked his phone. The screen lit up, revealing a message from Jill. His stomach twisted like a knot that wouldn't untie. He could feel Jake's laughter drifting off somewhere in the distance, but all he could focus on was the glint of concern in his son's eyes. Earlier, he swiped the message open. Mark, I really need to talk. Call me when you can. He felt the weight of the words settle heavily on him. They weren't just casual words. They were laden with worry, decision, and uncertainty. He took a deep breath, trying to fight off the wave of frustration threatening to crash over him. Just when he thought they could share some family joy, this darkness from the past crept back in. "What's wrong, Dad?" Jake had returned, his small face smeared with vanilla, still blissfully unaware of the emotional storm brewing between his parents. Mark forced a smile. "Just a message from your mom. Nothing for you to worry about, okay? How about you finish your ice cream before it melts?" "Okay," Jake chirped, his innocence a bittersweet contrast to Mark's swirling thoughts. They moved to a small table outside, the warm summer air wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. As he watched Jake dive into his ice cream, Mark couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. He missed how things used to be. He wished he could take away Jake's confusion, his worry. All of it felt like pieces of shattered glass beneath a heavy footstep. "Can we go to the park after this?" Jake asked, licking the scoop as it threatened to topple over. Mark nodded, the thought of the park offering a temporary refuge from the gnawing uncertainty of their situation. "Yeah, that sounds great. We can toss the ball around, maybe even try to fly a kite." Excitement danced in Jake's eyes. "Can we, Dad? I want a red kite." "Absolutely." Mark kept a steady warmth in his tone, even as chaos played in the back of his mind. He made a mental note this was their time now. It didn't have to be perfect, but they could make it good. But as he watched Jake with that delightful innocence, reality hit him again. Jill's words loomed like dark clouds overhead, threatening to overshadow their moment. He picked up his phone once more, his thumb hovering over the call button. The impulses to call her danced along the edges of his resolve. "Dad?" Jake's voice broke through, pulling him back. "Can you help me finish my ice cream? I can't reach the bottom." Mark chuckled, shaking off the weight pressing on his shoulders. "Of course. Let me take that for you." As he helped Jake, laughter bubbled up like the warmth of their shared moments. But beneath that lightness, tension still simmered. Who was Mark really, in this new normal that was unfolding? And what would Jill say if he called? Suddenly, a car pulled into the parking lot, rolling to a stop beside them. Mark's breath hitched. The driver's side door swung open, and for a split second hope surged forward. But it wasn't Jill. With every fiber of his being, Mark wanted to prepare for whatever was coming, to shield Jake from the possible fallout of adult decisions. He watched the car door close. The figure stepping out turned to face the shop wearing a familiar expression, one of uncertainty meant to cover vulnerability. Mark's heart raced. Who was that? Why did their presence provoke a crack in his carefully painted facade? He swallowed hard, wrestling with the urge to pull Jake closer. Would he have to explain another twist he wasn't ready to navigate? For now he was stuck in that moment, teetering on the edge of solace and chaos, just waiting to see what would unfold next. In the distance, he heard a whisper of wind and the faint sound of laughter, somehow both inviting and ominous. Something was about to change, but for better or for worse. Mark's gaze fixated on the figure stepping out of the car. The familiar shirt, slightly wrinkled, and messy hair. His heart thudded louder with every passing second. It was Roger, an old friend from high school, someone who had slipped into the shadows of Mark's memories after things fell apart with Jill. The last time they spoke, they were full of life, but the years had added heaviness to their interactions, shaped by years of distance and unsaid things. "Dad, who's that?" Jake's question cut through the air, innocent and clear. Mark's voice felt stuck in his throat. "Just a friend from school, buddy." His mind raced with confusion. Why was Roger here? Was he just passing through? Or was there more to this reunion? "Is it okay if I say hi?" Jake held his ice cream in one hand, curious eyes darting between his father and the newcomer. Mark hesitated, the clash of emotions almost overwhelming. On one hand, he wanted his son to forge connections, to have relationships beyond their little family unit. But on the other hand, he wasn't sure if this encounter was something he could control. "Let us just wait a moment, okay? Sometimes friends need to talk first." With every step Roger took toward them, Mark felt layers of resentment bubble up. He hadn't anticipated seeing anyone from his past today, especially not now when everything felt so fragile. The laughter of children playing around them slowly faded into the background, replaced by the drumming of apprehension filling his ears. Mark, Roger called as he approached, his smile warm but tinged with hesitation. It's been a while. Yeah. It really has. The words came out clipped, both welcoming and cautious. Mark couldn't help but notice the worry creeping into Roger's expression. You okay? Could be better, Roger replied, glancing over at Jake. I just wanted to say hello. I saw you here and, well, thought it was time to catch up. Catch up? The sharpness in Mark's tone was unintended, revealing more of his turmoil. I heard about what happened with you and Jill, Roger said softly, his gaze dropping. I wanted to see if you need, someone to talk to. All I need is a day with my son. Mark motioned to Jake, who looked between them, still blissfully unaware of the heaviness that hung in the air. The honesty in his response surprised Mark, almost rattling him. In that moment he saw the same vulnerability he'd felt bubbling beneath the surface when he'd read Jill's message. Dad? Jake tugged on his sleeve and Mark crouched beside him. Are we okay? Can we still go to the park? Mark's heart twisted. He hated that Jake had to ask, that the innocence of childhood was overlapped by complicated adult feelings. Yeah, buddy. We will. Roger seemed hesitant to step back but held up his hands as if sensing the growing tension. I'll let you both go. Just wanted you to know I'm here if you ever want to talk. Thanks. Mark managed a tight smile, his mind whirling. Roger wasn't the problem, but the past he represented was. Would he go back to the same cycle of emotions now that things were already so delicate? As Roger moved away, the laughter of kids echoed through the park once again. He looked at Jake, who was now watching the other children play and tugging at his shirt, excitement shining in his eyes. Ready to go? Mark asked, fighting his own inner battle between what was behind him and what lay ahead. Yeah. Let us get that kite. Jake bounced on his toes, his enthusiasm infectious. Mark took a deep breath, trying to encapsulate the fleeting moments of joy and happiness for Jake, even as uncertainty shadowed his own feelings. As they made their way to the park, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that this sudden encounter could change everything. Would Roger's offer of friendship bring him clarity or more complication? The sun shone warmly, but dark clouds loomed in the corners of his mind. Mark glanced at Jake, who was now lost in his dreams of red kites, and wondered what the future held in store for them. Would tomorrow bring answers, or would it only deepen the confusion? Mark followed Jake, his heart still pinching from that unexpected meeting. The park sprawled before them, filled with the laughter of children and the joyful chaos of families enjoying their weekend. But Mark struggled to shake the weight of the past. Roger's worried eyes replayed in his mind, mixing with memories of laughter and friendship that felt so far away now. Look, Dad. There's a perfect spot, Jake shouted, sprinting towards a grassy hill where the wind swirled just right for flying kites. Mark offered a half-hearted smile, allowing himself to be swept up in his son's excitement. It was a moment he knew he needed to cherish, even if his own thoughts tangled like the strings of the colorful kites waiting to be unleashed into the sky. Okay, let's get the red kite up. Remember how I showed you to hold it? Mark asked, trying to keep the bright energy of the day alive. Yeah, you just let it go, right? Jake said, bouncing on his heels, ready to take action. Sort of. We have to run with it first. Ready? Mark's voice lifted with an infectious enthusiasm he hoped would overshadow his own uncertainty. Jake nodded eagerly. Gripping the spool tightly together, they dashed across the grass, the kite struggling to lift off at first. The wind whipped against them, but Jake squealed with delight, pushing harder and faster. Mark couldn't help but laugh at his son's determination. Come on, Jake urged as they picked up speed. Finally, the kite caught the breeze. It soared high, a vivid splash of red against the blue sky. Mark watched, heart swelling, as Jake jumped and cheered, his laughter cutting through the earlier tension like a hot knife through butter. I did it, Dad! Jake shouted, pointing at the kite dancing in the sky, utterly oblivious to the storm of emotions brewing in Mark. Mark crouched beside his son, feeling the warmth of the sun on his back, mixing with the ache inside him. You sure did. It's beautiful, just like you. Jake turned to him, bright eyes sparkling. Can we do it again? I want it to fly higher. Absolutely. Let us keep it going. As they ran, every pull of the kite's string drew Mark's thoughts back to Roger. What did it mean to reconnect? Could he really open up old wounds and reforge friendships? He fought with the idea of letting Roger back into his life, knowing it would stir up the past, reawakening memories he had buried deep. But then Jake's joy brought him back to the present. His son was flourishing in this moment, his joy pure and untainted. Mark wanted to preserve it, to shield him from the shadows that lurked just beyond their small, happy world. After a while, they collapsed onto the grass, breathing heavily yet smiling. The sight of the kite still soaring above them brought a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe. Mark whispered to himself before Jake interrupted. "Dad, look." Jake pointed frantically, eyes wide. "The kite's going so high it looks like it's getting away." Mark followed his son's gaze, watching the kite dance freely against the backdrop of the clouds. "That's okay," he said. "Sometimes we have to let things go." "Like what?" Jake asked, confused. "Like, maybe letting old friends back into our lives. But only if we're ready." Jake paused, considering his father's words. "And if they come back, it can be fun again?" Mark smiled softly, surprised at how profound his son's question felt. "Exactly. But we need to be careful, right? Just like we don't want the kite to get tangled." As they sat together, a flutter of hope emerged within Mark. Could this day truly signify not just a moment of joy but also a step toward healing? "Let us do it again." Jake interrupted his thoughts, breaking into a jog. "Okay, let us fly that kite." Mark jumped up, already feeling lighter. Yet even as they ran again, he couldn't shake the thought of Roger. Was he really ready to delve back into that friendship? Were they both still the same people beneath the layers of hurt and regret? As the sun began to dip low, painting the sky with warm hues, Mark felt both apprehensive and excited for the possibilities to come. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Would he be able to face them head-on, or was he destined to remain stuck in the past? As the sun settled behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the park, Mark felt a flicker of determination. He glanced at Jake, who was still jumping and laughing, completely lost in the thrill of their kite dancing above. It was as if the kite was a symbol of all the space Mark felt he hadn't filled in over the years. He didn't want to be a distant memory in his son's life. But what did that truly mean? "Dad!" Jake called out, his voice bubbling with excitement. "Look how high it's flying." "It's amazing, isn't it?" Mark replied. Yet he felt a pang of sadness within him. He was supposed to be the one setting the height, guiding their journey together. Each time the kite soared just a little higher, it felt like Jake was pulling away, and Mark was struggling to keep pace. With the last rays of sunlight dancing in the sky, Jake suddenly dropped to the ground, panting but grinning. "I'm tired. But we can't stop yet. Can we take a break, please?" Mark smiled, appreciating the moment of rest. Yet his heart was racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. "Sure, buddy," he said, plopping down next to him. "How about we grab some snacks? There's that vendor over there. Want some ice cream?" "Yeah." Jake's eyes lit up. He was always a sucker for ice cream. As Mark studied his son's freckled face, he felt a rush of gratitude wash over him. This was what mattered. As they strolled towards the vendor, Mark noticed couples and families walking hand in hand, their laughter like a beautiful soundtrack in the backdrop. He wanted more of this for Jake, but he felt that something was holding him back, the fear of stumbling on the path back to friendship. "Dad?" Jake's voice was softer now, interrupting his thoughts. "Are you okay? You seem not happy." Mark knelt down, looking Jake in the eyes. "I promise I'm fine, just a little tired, I guess." Jake tilted his head, studying him with those innocent eyes. "You sure? You're not sad about the kite, are you?" Mark chuckled, shaking his head. "Not at all. That kite is flying great. I'm just thinking about some things about friends and how sometimes it's hard to let go of stuff. But you said it can be fun again if they come back." Jake bounced a little on his feet. "Like what about that guy you met earlier, Roger? He looked nice." Mark's heart sank a bit. Jake was perceptive, and the last thing he wanted was to burden him with adult worries. "Yeah, he is nice. But it's complicated. Sometimes friends have a hard time finding their way back. Then maybe you can help each other." Jake insisted, his enthusiasm unwavering. "You could meet up and fly kites like us. Kites always come back if you have a string." Mark's heart swelled at Jake's simple wisdom. "You're right," he said slowly. "But it's scary too. What if it doesn't work?" "But what if it does?" Jake countered, a cheeky grin spreading across his face. "We have to try." Just like we did with the kite. Mark smiled at the sheer innocence of his son's logic. He could learn a lot from Jake's optimism. The idea swirled in his mind. What if he reached out to Roger? What if there was a chance to reconnect, to put the dark memories behind them? Would facing those fears bring healing? I'll think about it, he replied, capturing the spark of hope ignited by his son's words. How about we grab that ice cream now? Oh yeah. Jake's voice squealed with delight, his laughter twinkling like stars rising above them as they walked together. A comfortable silence fell, the kind that filled of possibilities. Mark was beginning to realize that just like the kite with the right support and love, maybe they could soar high again as father and son and perhaps, as brothers in spirit with Roger. As the evening deepened, Mark felt a newfound sense of purpose. Tomorrow would indeed bring challenges, not just with the past but also in forging a future. But here and now, the sky was theirs and everything seemed possible. The lingering question bounced in his mind as they made their way back. Would he invite Roger for ice cream too? Or was that a risk he wasn't yet ready to take? The next morning dawned bright and clear, filled with the kind of warmth that promised adventure. Mark woke up with the sun's rays spilling through the window. He glanced over to Jake, still fast asleep, snoring softly. Mark's heart swelled with love. Today was going to be special. With coffee in hand, he sat at the kitchen table, gazing out the window at the neighborhood coming to life. Laughter echoed from outside. Children playing, parents calling for breakfast. It was the sound of a community thriving. And as much as he wanted to jump right into that world, he knew he had to tackle something first. He pulled out his phone and took a deep breath. Dialing Roger's number felt like standing on a cliff's edge. It took multiple heartbeats before the call connected. Mark. Roger's voice was familiar yet distant, like a long-lost echo. Hey Roger. It's been a while, Mark said, trying to keep his tone light despite the knot in his stomach. Yeah, it has. I saw you at the ice cream shop the other day. How is everything? Roger's voice revealed an underlying tension. Somehow they had both aged overnight. It's complicated. I've been thinking about us. About the past. You mean with Jill? Roger asked. I get it, man. It's been hard. Yeah, it has, Mark replied, his voice growing steadier. But I don't want to live in the past. I want to move forward. And that includes mending some fences with friends like you. Silence stretched between them for a moment, charged and raw. It felt like they were unearthing hidden treasures, shaking loose all of the unspoken words that had weighed them down. I'd like that, Roger finally said, his voice softer, almost sheepish. Want to meet up later? Maybe we can bring the kids? Yeah, I'd like that. I think Jake would love to see you. As they exchanged details, a flood of relief washed over Mark. This was the first step, a small bridge leading to the possibility of healing. Later that morning, Mark and Jake piled into the car, the excitement palpable. Jake was buzzing with energy, eager for the adventures ahead. Where are we going, Dad? Are we going to the park again? Not today, buddy. We're meeting a friend and I think you'll like this one, he said, racing against the clock as they drove. An open road stretched before them, and the sun brightly showcased the new beginnings that awaited. When they arrived at the local playground, laughter greeted them like an old friend. Mark spotted Roger just ahead, standing with his own daughter Sarah, who was bouncing on her heels, her curls bouncing in the soft breeze, remarkably similar to Jake when he was excited. Hey, over here. Roger waved, and Mark felt a rush of camaraderie in the air. Jake, practically throwing himself out of the car, sprinted toward the two kids. He quickly engaged with Sarah, immediately lost in playful banter. You ready for this? Roger asked as they shared a tentative handshake that transformed to a hug almost instinctively. More than ready, Mark replied, feeling the tension between them dissolve with each passing second. The afternoon flew by. The kids ran wild, giggling and chasing each other while Mark and Roger enjoyed tentative conversations laden with memories, fears, and the hope of moving forward. The air was filled with happy shouts, the sound of swings squeaking, and ice cream laughter drifting about them like light. Eventually, the sun dipped low, casting a golden glow over the playground. They found a quiet bench amid the chaos, and it was there that Mark realized something profound. Sometimes, friendships are like kites. They may drift, tangle, or even hit a rocky patch, but with patience and care, they can rise again, stronger than before. Thanks for coming out, man, Roger said as they watched their kids play. I didn't know if we could get back to this, but I've missed having you as a friend. Me too. It's time to let go of the past, Mark said, for the kids. They deserve us to be whole. Agreed, Roger nodded, and they shared a moment of understanding, a new beginning stacked upon old stories. That night, as they drove home, Jake chattered on about the fun they had and how he couldn't wait to see Sarah again. Mark listened, his heart light. Dad? Jake asked, looking up at him with those wide eyes filled with innocence. Can we keep doing this? Hanging out with friends? Like, is it okay if we become a big family? Mark squeezed the wheel a little tighter. The question hung there, both lovely and daunting, filled with potential. Yeah, kiddo. Family can look a lot of different ways, and I think it's okay for ours to change. With every passing mile, they drove deeper into the possibility of connection and healing. Mark smiled at the feel of hope, swirling through the car like the wind lifting a kite. Just like that, he felt lighter, knowing they could forge paths of love together, one adventure at a time. As they pulled into the driveway, the last remnants of sunlight shimmered on the horizon, representing all that was yet to come. Tomorrow held promise: a road trip, laughter, ice cream, and a chance at a new family dynamic. And as they walked into their home, Mark realized that while journeys may wobble, it's the company that kept everything aloft. In that moment, surrounded by love and laughter, he found that it wasn't just about mending what was broken, but about celebrating who they were becoming. So here is the call to action. You need to subscribe now to catch all the upcoming stories that inspire transformation and connection. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find this journey. Comment below about how these moments resonate with your life. And share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel and growing this community together.